So we don't have a housing crisis, at least in the way people think. We have a regulation crisis. At least that's my take on it. Before you go crazy, hear me out a little bit. So nowadays, in my county, you have to go through an insane permitting process and meet all these IRC requirements. And I know all the arguments back and forth where it's, oh, but it's better and it's more energy efficient and all this stuff. Okay, fine. Here's my argument. You can live in a shack if you want to. You should be able to. You can live in an RV if you want to. You can live out in a tent if you want to on your own property, as long as you own that property. Now you say, okay, property's expensive. It is. When I moved here years ago, our base rate for like a house was like 130 for like a little double wide type thing, and that's what I bought when I was here years ago. That's not the reality anymore, and I fully understand that. But here is the reality about the permitting issue. So I can actually build a house with my own two hands, a nice one, for, low end, I'll call it $40,000. That requires some modifying and all of that. But if you do it with sort of an actual modern set of utilities and standards and things like that, you can still get, at least in my area, you could still do it, just materials and doing it all yourself. You could easily do it for $70,000, $80,000. You cannot do that though. Instead of the word can, I should use the word may. You may not do that because local governments, local county officials create such stringent regulations that I am not able to actually, first of all, get the permit in place to build the type of house that I'd want to be able to do that. Secondarily, the level of overkill with the IRC codes, which is great. I love building science. I study it religiously like a nerd. But with the building science stuff that they are implementing as have-tos, not as this is a good idea or an optional thing, but as have-tos, makes it so that people are truly unable to go out and, quote, pull themselves up by their bootstraps anymore. I guess the reason I've been worked up about this for a long time, but the reason I'm so adamant about it is, at least right now, just got the idea of talking about this, is that I just listened to this guy who I don't blame him because, he's dealing with the information that he has offhand and he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Just like I don't know what I don't know, right? But the reality is he was talking for forever about how back in the 80s, people could afford life on a $30,000 salary, blah, 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 even adjusted for inflation. And then he's talking about this idea of like the piece of the pie that everyone can actually get. And first of all, that mentality is flawed to begin with. This idea of that there is a, quote, piece of the pie. The whole reality is that an economy is goods and services. It's not just, there's some fixed amount of wealth. I'm gonna stop walking here in a second. Like there's some fixed amount of wealth that, we all have to fight for and there's only scraps left. That's just a silly notion. An economy is goods and services. It's what you can think about, it's what you can do, it's what you can produce. Sorry, I'm stopping my dog here. By the way, my dog Emmy. Hi, Emmy. Hi. We're just going on a little hike today. But I've been thinking a lot about this for quite a few years now. And this place is gorgeous. This place is beautiful. But the local government here has just gotten way out of control in terms of what their power is. They can tell you what you can and cannot do on your own property, like to an insane degree. So when I say we don't have a housing crisis, we have a regulation crisis. I know from firsthand experience, I've built tiny houses, done remodels, things like that, where I've done it for very, very cheap. It's a regulation issue. And if I had asked the county to be able to do it that way, and it's perfectly functional. It works all 4 seasons, even out here high up in the mountains. And if I had asked the county to do it that way, they would have told me flat out no. As a matter of fact, they actually did when I asked. So rather ask forgiveness than permission on those things at this point in life. But yeah, just kind of a couple thoughts going through. This person was talking on YouTube, talking about how basically we have it so much harder than everyone else, and yeah, that's just not true, especially when you take into account human history. But even if you're looking back a couple decades, there's some realities that we do have different challenges, but I would propose that those challenges are more artificially constructed rather than that there's some piece of a pie that we're missing. We're told that we're not allowed to do things. We didn't have to ask for a license to start a business years ago. We didn't have to ask for a license to build a house years ago. We didn't have to ask for a license to go fishing years ago. We didn't have to ask for a license to go hunting years ago. We didn't have to ask for a license to sleep out in an RV on our own property years ago if we wanted to. That's just a couple little things. Now I understand there are some realities, especially in urban areas, like it's a lot harder, and there should be probably some safety measures. You know, Great Chicago Fire being a actual moniker that's okay. This is probably due to some lack of regulation. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But either way, urban areas, I can see the argument. Rural areas, I can see the argument for sewage and septic. You can't poison the groundwater because you're going to be physically harming your neighbor. Anyways, that's my long rant, and had to get that off my chest. Probably wasn't even coherent, but you know what? If you get some of the points, great. Maybe I'll write them out sometime. Anyways, this is The Vanishing Point. Appreciate it.